the news for you. The Awake Nation, the truth with a shot of espresso. The Mockingbird Media controls the narrative. We help you determine what is real and what is not.
A global conspiracy with key players at the highest levels of power reaches into the lives of every man, woman, and child on this planet.
Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow government, I will fear no Satans. Tuesday, January 30th, 2024, our guests are Collin Plume, President and CEO of Noble Gold. Collin Plume has created and looked after wealth for his clients and advises them on strategy and the management of their assets with over 15 years experience in property insurance, commercial real estate, and precious metal investments. He is well versed in finance and economics and helps investors guard their wealth. Our next guest is Christi Tasker. Christi Tasker is an award-winning technologist, international business consultant, designer, manufacturer, artisan. She designs and sells fashion, jewelry, home decor, and fabrics. Christi is also an investigative journalist based in Miami who travels globally to discover truth. She's an investigative journalist for the Awake Nation. You can find her at ChristiTasker.com, PSSRocks.com, PatriotsPerspective.com, and ChristiTaskerForMiami.com. And don't forget Banana Republic News with Christi Tasker, independent investigative journalist and reporter for the Awake Nation. Banana Republic News. We don't monkey around with the truth. Our next guest is Dr. Reg McDaniel. Dr. Reg McDaniel is a retired physician who developed the plant ingredients in New Eden. New Eden supports the normal functions of the human body by increasing the supply of nutrient molecules used in cellular synthesis to assemble bioactive compounds that operate the biochemistry and physiology of life. You can purchase his book, The Gift, A Primal Provision, on Amazon. Our next guest is James Bradley, running for Senate. Bradley is a self-described America First MAGA constitutionalist who is running for election to the U.S. Senate to represent California. He declared his candidacy for the primary scheduled on March 5, 2024. Bradley states he's not a professional politician, but we need more outsiders to have real solutions. Rounding out the final hour of the Awake Nation is Kerry Slone. Kerry is a survivor of domestic abuse who became a firearms instructor. She started her company, We the Female, with the goal of arming women saving lives. We the Female aims to inspire American women to take control of their safety, embrace and defend their inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness through self-defense training and security education. Don't forget to subscribe to the Dark Outpost at darkoutpost.tv. There you will find exclusive content, interviews, documentaries, and intel not found anywhere else. You can find us on Rumble at the David Zublick channel and watch us live at theawakenation.com. Falling down the rabbit hole can hurt. Ow, 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 ow. Ow, that's gonna hurt. We will provide the researchers and whistleblowers. Your mission is to discern the truth from the MSN lies. And now for the interview portion of the Awake Nation. And awake we go with a shot of espresso. It's showtime.
Hi, welcome back to the Awake Nation with Penny L.A, Shepard, and David Zublick with you. Christi Tasker will be joining us in just a moment. I want to remind you folks, if you are spending a lot of money on gasoline right now, and who isn't, Get More Tank will save you money every month on gas. Now, what is Get More Tank? Well, it's a tablet with active ingredients that adds big mileage to every tank. It's made in America, so you're not getting it from China or any other foreign country. The special formula is already being used by trucking companies and heavy industry, but now you can get more tank for you. Get More Tank works in any gas or diesel engine. It cleans your engine, lowers your emissions, and you're going to feel improved engine performance every time you step on the gas. Get More Tank works for cars and trucks and boats, motorcycles, four-wheelers, mowers, blowers, and snow throwers. Hey, if you got an engine, Get More Tank. Contractors, electricians, plumbers, painters, lawn service companies are already contacting your prospective customers for the spring right now. Why not be able to save yourself a little bit more money and put a little more of that money in your pocket for profit by spending less on gas? Get More Tank will save you money and extend the life of your engines. If you are an owner-operator running your own big rig around town or across the country, Get More Tank will save you money too. If you're a farmer, all of your equipment can use Get More Tank. A 5-pack is on sale right now. Just go to getmoretank.com right now, getmoretank.com, and you can spend $22. You'll get a 5-pack and use the promo code AwakeNation to get 10% off of that. So save your money, save your engine, save the earth, and Get More Tank at getmoretank.com, promo code AwakeNation. And that being said, she's finally seated in her chair.
Yes,
So
and I do have an intro. I do have an intro for her. I do have an intro.
I thought, okay, go ahead.
Okay, 1 second.
Welcome to Banana Republic News. We don't monkey around with the truth. Meet your host and creator of Banana Republic News, Christi Tasker, international investigative journalist situated in Miami. Christi covers hot topics the MSN won't touch. She covers crime, government corruption, conspiracies, and the entire political spectrum from Trump to DeSantis with the unbiased eyes of a seasoned world traveler and investigative journalist. She also covers art, fashion, food, music. She utilizes undercover methodologies and no topic goes uncovered. For Christi Tasker is a formidable, deep researcher. Many do duck and cover when they see her coming. Banana Republic News with Christi Tasker begins now.
Yeah,
It's
man.
bananas
And
around here.
he is here now, man. Here she goes. And Christy, you need to unmute your mic.
She just feels.
I said we don't monkey around with the truth here. Okay.
No, we do not.
No matter which side of the aisle we're on, we don't monkey around with truth. And listen, if you're a Democrat, stay in your Democrat party. We'll teach you how to clean it up. Let's just all get along here. Let's get rid of the criminals. There are criminals on both sides of the aisle. That's the reason I don't understand.
You're actually frozen, Christy. We can hear you, but it looks like somebody took a Christy poster and put it in front of the screen. There we go.
Is it better now?
Yes.
Is it gone now?
We can hear you.
Hold on. Let's see.
But
There's
yeah,
something twirling on my.
I'm just going to put I'm going to put a penny poster right here, cut out of me. Just sit it right here.
And see if that works. You're going to see if David
notices.
We should do that when Heather's not here. Just get a poster.
Right? A Heather poster. Just sit her in front of a computer.
Or maybe just a looping video with her nodding.
or maybe, if you guys want a little color sister, I can get you Myra Jolie. She might be willing to come on and be a co-host for you, Penny. I didn't even think about that. Nodding girl. That when David said nodding, she's the nodding girl behind Trump. That's like,
right.
I know her. I saw her at City Hall last week. It was funny. So yeah, we're still in the banana republic with very few bananas and a lot of monkeys running around, and cockroaches like trying to hide and cover. It's actually quite comical. Today we have a very interesting day. It's the State of the Union address for Miami. It's going to be going on in about 20 minutes. So as soon as I finish here, I have to head over to City Hall and see what the lies are regarding the State of the Union. So this is going to be really funny. And what's going to be really interesting is this will, if Francis Suarez, Francis, yes, I'm coming. Okay. So I don't know if you're going to deliver the address if I'm there, because he always runs to the point where I actually even like tell his sergeant of arms, I'm like, hey guys, just hang in there because eventually you're going to have a real mayor.
That's what they said in your promo.
All these guys are tired of
when they see you coming.
They do. The mayor especially. He is terrified of me. Okay. So, I have to make sure that, I let them know. I always let them know when I'm going to come. And he normally does not show up. I've never been in the same room with Francis Suarez or his father.
Not Christi.
Oh, no. They run like little cockroaches. Like you should just
coming.
There have been times, if people can just imagine, you get this invitation in the mail and it says your mayor's going to be there for this speech because he's the honorary person, okay? And he doesn't show up. Why doesn't he show up? What am I that scary looking? Like,
I don't know. Did DeSantis kick you out of his press conferences?
Yeah, well, DeSantis, they didn't really kick me out. Here's what they did. They Laura Loomer me. They loomer me, okay? So in other words, it's what we call loomering, okay? Because she's, she was the first that they started this with, where they don't want you in the press conferences at all because they think you're going to have an outburst and you're going to have a question. Listen, I'm always very kind. I submit my question just like a journalist. I'm just never called upon. Why not? We should all be asking. Why is only there like very vague questions that could already be answered online? I've even tried to get other journalists. I'm like, here, why don't you ask them this? That they're going to call and you've already seen your name on the list. Why don't you ask them? I need to start publishing those videos, Penny, because of me asking other journalists.
They don't want to not be called in anymore. Look, you're holding them to
a course.
You're holding them to task.
That's exactly right.
Holding them to task, Miss Tasker.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, oh my gosh. Oh, and this is the other thing, because I'm 5'11", they never want to get that. This is the other reason I think that they run from me. Somebody actually
tower over them. DeSantis is wearing lifts in his cowboy boots.
Do.
He doesn't want you towering over him.
Like, for instance, I need to post the photo of me with little Billy, little vile Billy, according to Joe Carollo. Because little Billy comes up to here on me. Okay, he's so tiny.
He is funny though.
No, he's very funny. He's very, very funny. Oh yeah. Well, listen. I mean, I love Billy's content. I just wish Billy would finish telling the whole truth. Come on, Billy, let's tell the whole truth here. I'm like, I can give you the facts, but he never calls for them either. So that's when I'm looking, going, okay. Most likely you're paid by these people. You're paid by these people. And guess who's in the middle? Me, the truth.
Yes.
Somewhere in the middle is
you and I have been talking offline about, I'm getting feedback for some reason. You and I have been talking about the politicians, but not just the politicians, about the people in Miami that are affiliated with the mob. We discussed a particular case about investigating it. With an individual who was a lobbyist who bribed over 22 Republicans, and that person is still around in the vicinity. But Miami is a pinnacle point for the mob, for CIA. I quite often said I was born in '58 that there are more CIA in Miami than at Langley. And so you have an interaction of dirty politicians, of cocaine cowboys, which are still around. And for people that don't know, Billy Corbin was an individual who did the cocaine cowboy movies.
Well, first of all, Penny, we need to quit calling him Billy Corbin, because Billy Corbin is not his real name. His name is William Cohen.
Really?
His name is William Cohen. He's not even Billy Corbin. Yeah. So I'm always concerned when somebody needs to change their name for
That's
public
very
appearances.
interesting because someone just sent me something about the owners of the Diplomat and their names. They changed their name to Cowan, Cowan, but their name was Cohen.
Oh yeah.
Oh, interesting. Because especially considering John
Jewish name.
Yes.
Are they ashamed to be Jewish?
Yeah, that's
Well,
David. That was exactly my question. Why are you ashamed to be Jewish? Why? Okay, so
it's a Jewish
that's where I say
mob. That's what we're talking about.
somewhere
We're
in-
talking about
somewhere in the middle
Jewish
is the truth, David. So,
Yeah.
that's where I do listen to, some of the things when Joe Carollo is calling out little Billy as a vile person. Like, I'm like, number one, why isn't Billy suing him? Okay, so I sent a message last week with several of people that I know are connected with Joe Carollo. And I said, listen, if Joe's not connected with Billy, then Joe is basically giving little vile Billy ammunition to shoot Joe in the back and in the foot and the head and every which way.
There might be a reason why he changed his name, Christy, because of Mickey Cohen. Because Mickey Cohen, Meyer Harris, Mickey Cohen was an American gangster, boxer, and entrepreneur based in Los Angeles, boss of the Cohen crime family.
Well, that could be too. Yeah, that makes.
So how did
Penny,
those
you had a connection. You had a connection that was even closer. I was going to say, you've got the Diplomat Hotel. Who worked at the Diplomat Hotel?
The people that owned it were the Cohens, and yes, it was John Walsh. But the people that owned it were the Cohens, and how did they get? And they actually were The hoteliers were they were grocery heirs, just like on Paradise Island. The owners of Paradise Island, Huntington Hartford, was a grocery heir of A&P Groceries. So the grocery heirs got into the hotelier business, in which they could then infiltrate and have all of the mobsters at their hotels, have all of the entertainers at their hotels, so they could facilitate drug laundering, money laundering, and sex trafficking.
Okay. I'm going to ask some questions and just give me answers, Penny, just so our audience can start to read through. Who worked at the Diplomat Hotel?
John Walsh and John Monahan.
Yeah.
John Monahan was Irish mom.
William Cohen was at the Sears department store the day that Adam Walsh went missing. He was a 6-year-old witness. His mother was also a witness. She is a known actress.
Ooh.
Billy Corbin is the producer of Cocaine Cowboys.
Yes,
who wants everybody to. So
you're saying Billy Corbin, who is William Cohen, was a witness to the taking of Adam Walsh.
That's what he said.
Yes.
Wow.
Even he says he was, David. When I first met him, so here's basically, I want everybody to understand this. So I am on a panel with 13 other people running for office in January 2023. Keep in mind, I've run twice. Okay. So for everybody out there that's been thinking like, oh my gosh, does she always talk about elections? We've had 2 elections in 1 year for the same seat. Okay. We're about to have another set of elections because they gerrymandered the maps. Okay. They're realizing they're not going to get away with it. We're going to have elections again. So yes, it feels like you're constantly running for something in Miami, because either that or we give it away to the criminal cartel. Okay. So either good people stand up and run, or you give it away to the criminal cartel. Okay. General Flynn basically said this in my press briefing with him. Okay. I have it on video. I've showed it here. We don't have time for it today because it's like a 5-minute clip, but you can go to Patriots Perspective YouTube, where this video is airing. You can go to my General Flynn videos and either go to part 1 or part 2 and go to 1717. And that was literally by mere coincidence that it's exactly at 1717 that I asked him the question, General Flynn, every time I meet with you, you tell me that Miami is among the worst. And he says, you're right. It is. And I have told you that multiple times. So when he has told me that Miami is among the worst. And listen, I know a lot of people out there going, oh, General Flynn's such a bad guy. I do not think General Flynn is a bad guy. Okay. General Flynn doesn't control me. General Flynn just answers questions when I have them, when he can. Okay. So do I think he's maybe a double agent, triple agent, has been? Absolutely. I think absolutely he has. Yeah.
I don't think he's a bad guy either.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just publicly stating
I
that.
had to research him a lot, and my conclusion right now is that he's probably a triple agent, but I don't think he's a bad person.
No, and he's never told me that he's running for president. Matter of fact, what he has said is that his PAC will be going away this year. This is the last year. He's not going to do anything, but he has been actually supporting local candidates with the PAC. And he doesn't control those candidates. I've talked to them personally, even behind the scenes. They say, nope. Matter of fact, a lot of them have never even spoken with him. They don't get any direction from him. They have only,
I believe he's endorsing
money to run for office. Is he the uranium whistleblower?
Yes, he is. And
They
General
came
Flynn
as
is endorsing him.
whistleblower. Right. Okay. So, and I believe I could probably get an endorsement out of General Flynn if he thought that it would help me. However, you know, there are times that I've asked for endorsements and they say, listen, you know, you got to ask your campaign manager, is this going to help you or hurt you? Because, you know, there's a billboard with his face that like literally is going around the Biscayne Bay that's paid for by supposedly Christian pastors. Well, I mean, those pastors themselves are known to, you know, take up money and everything else. So I don't really know. Listen, I don't give anybody any money. I'm not concerned about that. What I am concerned about is the people that are going to speak up in my community. There are part truths being given. I'm about the full truth. I'm about transparency. If you are not talking to me, that's another, you know, red flag. If you're running from me, that's another red flag, because they know that I'm going to expose the truth no matter which side of the aisle it's on, no matter what your name is, and no matter how you put on your pants or who you have sex with. I could care less. I don't want it in front of our children. I don't even want our children to hear about sex from adults. Okay. This is ridiculous. Sex belongs at home. Any conversations belong with their parents. I always thought it was awkward, even in school, when we had to have sex ed and our parents had to sign a document saying that we could participate in a sex ed class. I thought it was the strangest thing ever. Okay. It opens up children's minds. It makes them do things they otherwise would not do. Trust me, I know. Okay. It may be very inquisitive. Instead of teaching you right from wrong, it actually made you realize things existed. And that started with us at 13. So imagine what it's like for 3-year-olds that are, you know, getting a library book off the shelf and having to hear about their genitalia and their parts or whatever. So, I mean, I think it's just all absolutely very gross, very disgusting. And we know from Megan, who has given up absolutely everything, some of the ways that they move money. They move people by the water. Miami is nothing but the water. So when I see Miamians out protesting the southern border, are you kidding me? We are the southern border. I assure you, they want a distraction on the Mexico border. You won't even believe what comes in here. Okay. Comes in via our port, comes in via every little marina and every little boat slip that's at people's homes. Trust me, I know. I've gone after these marina boat slip owners that I thought were very odd, who have their fishing businesses that don't come in with any fish. Okay. When you don't come in with fish and you're closing your big butt containers that are big enough that they look like a coffin. Yeah. I'm going to look for you. Okay?
It gives new meaning
I'm going
to
to fly a
sleeping with
drone over.
pigeons.
Yeah. No. And why do we need a pilot's license to fly a drone 20 feet above these boats? Because they don't want you to see what's there. Okay. They don't want you to see what's there. It ain't nothing about the
around 40 years later. I'm wondering why I skipped a yacht to go to Houston. Now I'm thinking, when I studied the Cocaine Cowboys, okay, so what was in the bow? And we did get followed by the feds, which was weird, right?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, every cruise ship guy will tell you it's very easy. They have no idea what's being trucked in and out. There are shipments on cruise ships. I actually call them sea prisons. So listen, I just went on a cruise, couldn't stand it, couldn't wait to get off. Literally,
I don't like cruises either.
No.
Can't stand them.
I've been
No.
on two, and oddly enough, they were both to Jamaica, and there were both doctors sitting at my table. Oddly enough. Yes.
Interesting, Penny.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But
Were they
I didn't know anything down. I'm like, huh.
Yeah, well, every time I pass Ives Dairy Road, I think of you, Penny, because I think about the MK Ultra mind control projects.
Yeah,
and by the way,
it's creepy.
If everybody could just see how close the mall was that Adam Walsh went missing, how close all these people that we're talking about live to Ives Dairy Farm Road. And by the way, they're all coming into Miami where they don't even live.
Right. And my grandma lived in Hollywood. And she also knew Al Capone's widow, May Capone, because May Capone died in a nursing home 8 miles from my house. So when I asked my grandma, because I'm a second generation singer, what was it like to sing at the speakeasies for the gangsters? And she was like, dip it, said nothing. And now I understand why, because she was pals with May Capone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really serious. So the one thing that I want, because I know sometimes our audience may go, well, she's just talking about Miami. But we know from Mike Gill, we know from interviews from him that every single one of us need to, number one, if you don't do anything else other than put your butt in a seat at your city and your county meetings, commission meetings, start by just going. Okay. Yeah. Number one, you'll connect with your neighbors. You'll let them know that there are people watching out for them. So go to your city meetings. Number two, start to even connect the dots, draw out who is connected to who. Okay.
Right. This corruption is not just in Miami, but the people in Miami, the reasons why they built the hotels in Miami were to get the influx of the criminals from the entertainment industry. And then also, they were already in Miami. The criminals were in Miami, and the head, Meyer Lansky, was the head accountant for the 5 families which were situated in New York. So this is a global proposition, but Miami is one of the pinnacles because of its peninsula and its location for the drug trafficking routes, which are DTRs, and the drug trafficking organizations, which are networked across the United States and transnationally.
Listen, I'm just going to tell our audience, Florida has more border than Texas and Arizona ever thought about having. You are being fooled if you are buying into the border crisis theory. Okay. Number one, I've interviewed people who have come over the border. The cartel charges them $17,500 and they know everywhere they go with their Obama phone. So if you think our government can't find them, but the cartel can, we got another thing coming. Because listen, the cartel doesn't give up on their $17,500. Okay. Yep. So, and these are people that have American children. They cannot get their citizenship. Why can't they get their citizenship? They have children that are not even being supported by our government. Fathers that just want to go to work to pay for their own children, to have a normal life and go to school. Okay. But they had to come over the southern border. They didn't get their $500,000. Matter of fact, they would be deported if they weren't paying the payments to the cartel. So wake up, America.
We are running out of time. However, this discussion we should continue with this discussion next time regarding the borders in Florida and the influx of individuals that have come there as well.
Yep. And Penny, everybody needs to make sure they follow bananarepublicnews.com. I have a lot to release this week. Thank you guys for having me.
We will definitely do that. And Christy, we'll pick this conversation up next time. I want to hear a lot more about it. So thank you so much.
God bless you.
Thank you.
God bless you too. Christi Tasker here on the Awake Nation. ChristiTasker.com, PatriotsPerspective.com. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Dr. Reginald McDaniel is going to be joining us. We got a lot more to talk about your health right after this. Welcome back to the Awake Nation with Penny L.A. Shepard and David Zublick with you. And joining us now is Dr. Reg McDaniel of Wellness Quest, who joins us on a regular basis to talk about the importance of your health. Dr. McDaniel, how are you this morning?
Good morning. Made it by the hair of my chinny chin chin. Boy, the traffic has really increased here since the Californians moved to Texas.
Oh, well, I
Right.
lived in North Dallas about 1981, and the LBJ. I'm familiar with that entire area, Prestonwood Mall. I don't know if that's still around or not, but yeah, and traffic was heavy then, but it was for a different reason. Everybody was heading down to the Sun Belt in the 80s when they thought there was going to be better economic climates down there, and it's a beautiful. Texas is a beautiful, and it may end up being, I was going to say it's a beautiful country. It may end up being its own country eventually if this Texit thing goes through and the border crisis isn't resolved.
Yes, it's a terrible thing, and I hope somebody does something about it. Real quickly, the reason we started these lectures is because our population is so drug oriented, whether it be illegal prescription drugs or illegal drugs. And then the second, and to let people know that the biochemistry of life is operated by a program in the genes that utilize nutrient molecules to make bioactive molecules to run the biochemistry of life. And then the World Health Organization has developed multiple areas where people live to be 90 over 100 and have good health. And there's some common denominators of all these places. And you don't have to move to an isolated island or peninsula. That if you pay attention to your diet and its selections and the amounts and exercise and practice good health procedures, you can get the benefits of the blue zones. And we've been talking about the white box effect, that there seems to be an innate intelligence within our body. I guess it's centered in the genes, maybe in the function of the brain being the mind that controls the autonomic nervous system, that if you've got multiple problems that are health challenges, that the most life-threatening and serious will be addressed first by more optimal nutrition. It'll work down to the less important things. And so that's what we call the white box effect rather than the black box, which is for drugs that have toxicities they didn't even anticipate. But this is a good thing. and we were on slide number 7.
All right, let's get
We had developed this thing about the white box, and at this point, we pointed out that a bishop in India, one of their most innovative and entrepreneurial, had founded multiple schools and clinics, came to my office twice because he had heard my presentation to the United Nations office in Rome that nutrition is the most economical, practical, and safest approach to health management, which is I'm trying to get across. And he wanted to do a pilot project in Kerala, India, to prove up this white box effect and move it to all the states in India, because there's no way, they don't have the resources in the nation to build the medical schools, train the doctors and nurses, much less maintain them and practice Western medicine. And we can't afford it either, because this being totally brainwashed or indoctrinated to the idea that if you got a health problem, whether it's physically, mental, or emotional, we got a drug for it. And Paracelsus, the father of Western pharmacology's most famous statement was, all drugs are poisons. The benefit depends on the dose. And that's why this nutrition approach is so important, because your genes have the program to utilize nutrients to do this. And unfortunately, the bishop could not get the money together to do that pilot project in Kerala to prove up the white box effect, which is at this point kind of between my ears. It needs to be tested and proven. Everything in medicine and science, you have to do something to prove that it's done. So let's go to the next slide.
All right.
I have a large protocol that was to be used in Kerala, and it still sits there unused. But Hippocrates, 300 to 400 years before our calendar started, the most famous statement was started out, if we could provide to the individual the optimal nutrition and exercise, not too much, not too little, we have provided the safest pathway to good health. That's what I'm trying to get across with these lectures. Then beneath it, he wrote, let your food be your medicine your food. And I'm still bewildered by how in the world, in the pre-scientific era, he was able to say that, which modern science is proven all the time. Next slide, please.
All right.
This is the index to the protocol, and we have all the different areas of disease, and we have studies and series that support, and we put it in this protocol for the investigative committee that approves projects for human experimentation in India, that this is why we want to do the white box effect. The next slide is just the tabs at the protocol. It's a large book, and that's the second list of these different conditions that, and one of the most important is the fact that more comprehensive nutrition is beneficial in areas. One of the biggest black boxes in medicine and science is function of the brain, because the mind works better when you have optimal nutrition. Next slide. This is just the tabs along the edge of the protocol for all these topics that we had before. And then the next slide we can go to that. Unfortunately, the Kerala clinic, they could not get the money together to do it, but it sits there. So the next slide is part of the support that's in this protocol, because a medical scientist from Moscow came and spent 2 days with me to tell him about the Russian research that was done behind the Iron Curtain. And this is the cover that I put on the syllabus about this. But instead of dietary supplements, they call them adaptogens, where they give the body, through nutrition, the molecules from plants to adapt to physical, mental, and emotional stresses in the body. Next slide, please. Now, one of the things that they did is that this was 1,200 auto workers making military trucks. And this gives the first column the control year for the number of days missed due to health problems and the percentage that are missing. And then in the second column, they started at the morning and afternoon tea breaks, putting into the tea that everybody drank tea. They put the adaptogens, plant molecules, and you see what happened each year as the number of employees that were absent from this 1,200 individuals in this auto plant to virtually non-existent. So nutrition works, and we have this in there to prove to them that what we're going to do is beneficial, and it's been proven in a workplace. Now, the next slide, they said, why were they able to come to work? And so this was a group of employees that they followed them for influenza, hypertension, and ischemic heart disease, which is one of the biggest causes of death in our country. And these were in the first column, the year of control before they started adding the adaptogens, which we call dietary supplements, to their morning and afternoon tea break. And look at the drop in cases of influenza, hypertension, and ischemic heart disease that happened in this plant. And I might add that these were truck drivers that were going in and out of a controlled environment like the workers and a big thing that protects them from the environment. Well, these truck drivers were in and out in the environment as well as coming into the business. So next slide, please. Mm-hmm. This is, again, supportive of this. Now, a paper was published in English. Dr. Trebashnik that came and spent the 2 days said if you can read about 7 languages across the time zones and the different nations that and groups that are in the Soviet Union, I could bring you a truckload of papers. But this is from an individual in London who was a multiple language type things. And so they took mice and gave them an equivalent amount of the adaptogens, and they, without it, would collapse on this running belt in 52 minutes. But they added about the approximate amount that they were getting in their tea, the humans, and instead of collapsing in 52 minutes, they went 72 minutes, or a 38% increase in their performance of muscle activity and endurance. So then they took 100 humans that were training for the Olympics in the 3,000 meter thing, gave them the tea that they gave the mice at the level that they gave the workers in the plants. And lo and behold, every one of them broke their best times that they had in their training. And they calculated for this 100 humans that it was 38% improvement in their performance, just like the mice on the board. So this is pretty incredible. The reliability of this science and the numbers that were being done. But Ben Trebashnik was a sports medicine physician, and he was in charge of the Russian Olympic team that went to Mexico City, where some of their contestants taking the adaptogens broke not only the best time, but even broke it as a second and third place. All 3 of them broke the best records. They thought there was doping, but they could find absolutely no evidence of any kind of drug thing as they really investigated it. And this is just proof at a high level of the incredible contribution to optimal health, because we have a lot of reserve in our body engineered into it, that you almost have to take athletes performing at the highest level possible in human performance to tell what you're doing is of any benefit, because there's so much extra capacity to take stress in the body. And so again, these Olympians performing at the absolute peak of human performance increased 38% and broke records. Next slide, please. This is all part of what supports doing the study at Kerala, India, that this would be of value. And they went from the truck drivers to mine workers, where they're exposed to even greater stress, physically, temperature, humidity, dust, and they increased the amount, almost doubled it, the amount of adaptogens. And the truck drivers had, again, as we showed in a previous graph, by the final year, 90% less influenza compared to control populations. And the minor workers, with even more stress on their bodies, were improved 2.4 times decrease of their controls. Next slide. Again, these are studies that added to the reason and the theory that the I'm trying to talk too faster than I can think, that the optimal nutrition can do all this. Now, the Soviet adaptogen formula had in it plant sterols, which sterols are in the hormone spectrum, is the number one ingredient, then phytonutrients and phytochemicals from plants, and then they've had glyconutrients and vitamins and minerals in their formula that this paper published in England points out. Well, this is why Ben Treboshnik came here, because we had not plant sterols as the number one thing, but down the list, but the glyconutrients like they had, then the phytonutrients, then the less plant sterols. And the big difference was that the Soviets had to tune this adaptogen to the date and time that they're going to have their competition, because if you emphasize sterols, you will reach a peak in performance, and then if you continue it, it will drop off. But the main thing was that lo and behold, we didn't have to tune this thing. They could take it every day, because the plant sterols were a minor thing. And Ben Treboshnik says, how in the world that all the human investigators in the Soviet Union pulled together in Moscow and said, we want you to develop something that the Soviet citizen can perform better than any other citizens to make people want to be communist and part of our organization. Well, he said, you had just a little handful of people, no more than 50 people, and very little money compared to the rubles that we spent. How in the world were you able to do this in Texas? And I looked at him and smiled, and I said, well, in Texas, we've got a saying, I'd a whole hell of a lot rather be lucky than smart. And we were very lucky that all our research started on what is it in the aloe leaf gel that for over 5,000 years, different civilizations and groups of people have been using the aloe leaf gel for various types of compromises in health. And that was where our focus started back in 1985, when I asked me to be a medical consultant, which is now 38 years ago. I've been focused on this. So this is this Russian experience supports that our study that we wanted to do in Kerala would be successful if we could get the funds to do it. You can't do any kind of research unless you've got money, and you have to pay people, and you have to do assays, like we were showing you that they even put the mouse on a continuous belt and found out what their abilities were, and then they found out that 100 Olympic 3,000 meter contestants training for the Olympics had the same 38% improvement in their performance. Well, let's go to the next slide. What I point out here is that the bishop came to the United States and went around to successful Indians that had migrated and had been very financially successful, and tried to get them to contribute to the study to be done in Kerala. Now, he had found someone that would contribute 200 acres to start a plantation there, but you got to have money to pay people to find the aloe pulps, and it takes about 2 years to get the plants up to where you can harvest them. So that didn't work out. So he went to the Arab immigrants, because the royal families pay for all the health care in their nation, and says, if you will give us funds from your oil funds, we will share all the information we get out of this so you can reduce pardon me, the cost of what it costs you every year to take care of the citizens of this country health-wise. And this is the last slide that
I want to go back, if I could, to one of the previous slides, because there was some very important information on there that I don't think that we got to. So let's go to this slide here. This is some of the benefits that we didn't go through each one of these bullet points. But
no, I didn't go through them because the print is so small.
That's okay. Let me read some of these and just have you comment on, because this, I think Dr. McDaniel, this is very important. Okay. Alzheimer's disease reversed. This is the most scientifically validated condition that responds to enhanced nutrition. The study, in which 100% of patients benefited, was conducted at a medical school and published in the Alzheimer's Disease Journal. So we could actually, proper nutrition and we're talking about the nutrition that's in the New Eden, may be beneficial in reversing the effects of Alzheimer's disease. Brain damage is another one. I mean, this is talk about how important this is, Dr. McDaniel.
Well, this is, I say, one of the black boxes in medicine, that the brain carries on the biochemistry and the physiology, but its function is the mind. And on my computer, I have 26 published papers. And the reason there's so many of them is because our education system is skeptical, and they say there won't be any improvement in academic performance of children until we have more money. And what we've shown is, for pennies, with improved nutrition, that children with special education classes get out and get in regular classes. Children with Denise defects. Well, I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, but I must push the wrong button. So
don't worry about it, Doctor. This is fine.
Anyway, I went to medical school to become a psychiatrist. And it didn't take me long to decide that the psychiatrists didn't know what the hell they were doing.
They were crazy. I was married to one.
Yeah, to give them all these drugs and all the side effects of them. And what I am so important, I will never forget the times that have happened over my travels, that people that had schizophrenia, which is one of the worst problems in mental illness, totally quit having the symptoms of schizophrenia, and the lack of trust of anybody around them, being hostile, seeing and hearing things that don't exist. All of this was reversed. That's one of the worst problems in brain function. Well, lo and behold, nutrition supports the cells to have more normal biochemistry, and that biochemistry is the function of the brain. Now, that is the point that I try to get across in the second thing, pointing out the cascades of there's very few things in the body's function that's on and off. It's multiple steps. It's called a cascade, and each cascade step has a compound that is changed just a little bit, step after step, and all of these are made up of nutrient molecules. And so what we're doing is giving the incredible programming that's in the 46 chromosomes that have they say up to 30,000 genes. We're giving the genes what they need. And as I step back from this, one of the most incredible things that's going on in every cell in a human body is that the DNA program takes molecules that are totally lifeless and hooks them together in cellular synthesis, and lo and behold, the process of life occurs. And so Alzheimer's and schizophrenia, the Alzheimer's patients improve memory and cognition, and the experts down at the medical school were, before we did this study, were downright insulting with their skepticism and cynicism that nutrition would be of any benefit, because professionals, just like our lay public, is drug oriented. You got a problem, we got a drug for it. Well, all drugs, their mode of action is to interfere with the engineering and design and biochemistry to reduce symptoms.
In other words, they're fighting what God has given us the ability
Right.
to do with the enhancement of proper nutrition. Some of these other ones, and what I'd like to do in your next visit, because we're running out of time, but we won't get to all of them today, but I would like to come back to this and go through some of these individual ones. I can make it a little bit larger so you can read a little bit better, as you can see here, because I think this is very important. Type 2 diabetes improves, aging processes, major benefits for children's maladies, autoimmune conditions, school test.
I showed you the tabs, and everywhere you've got one of these tabs, we have the papers. Some of them are done at medical schools, like the asthma study done at Loma Linda University in California, and the Alzheimer's done at Miller School of Medicine in Florida. I mean, this is not a hokum and spin. Fact is, I find it hard to believe that nutrition is as effective as it is. And
God gave us everything we need. He really did. He provided this. If this doesn't prove the existence of God and the ability to just eat properly, and He will take care of your mind and your body. I just want to remind people, go to theawakenation.com. There's a picture of this jar right there. Order a couple of jars of this. You take it, a scoop in the morning, scoop at night with some yogurt or whatever you want to put it in. And let me tell you something, this thing is fantastic, and there's so many benefits to it. And the next time Dr. McDaniel is on, we're just going to go through these slides here, a couple of these, and go through some of the individual benefits, because I want you to know about this. This is fantastic.
Let me say one thing.
Sure.
All those topics and what goes on in every cell in your body is, I say, has turned this in. It started out as basic science, but it's turned into a spiritual journey, because there is no question that there is a creative, organizing, and designing power active in the universe. And different religions have different names for this power, and you used one of them, God. The Jews use Yahweh. The Islam will say Allah. But there is a creative, organizing, and designing power in the universe. It is the biggest mystery that man has ever faced to try to comprehend.
And we will continue to pursue that. And folks, please get the New Eden. Go to theawakenation.com, buy yourself a couple of jars. You will notice an improvement in your health immediately. I mean, really, I've been using it for a long time. Dr. McDaniel, we'll go over those bullet points again next time. I want this to sink in with people, and I want to thank you for all that you do. And we'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks, okay?
Well, it's very rewarding what this can do for so many people.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Dr. Reginald McDaniel here on the Awake Nation. Please, again, go to theawakenation.com, and there's a jar right there on the homepage. It's fantastic.
I also wanted to mention he has a book.
Yes.
He has a book on Amazon. It's called The Gift, A Primal Provision. So please go to Amazon and purchase that book.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Please do that. And you're not going to be disappointed. All right. Let's bring in our next guest because we need to there's so many. If we're going to we need to stay healthy. We need to stay healthy. Why? Because we're dealing with all kinds of problems. And then we need to elect the proper people to help solve these problems, like our next guest, James Bradley. Mr. Bradley, welcome in to the Awake Nation.
And your mic is off.
Your mic is muted. You got to go unmute. Oh, we have bad sound effects. You sound like Mickey Mouse. You're going to have to sign out and sign back in.
It's going to be one of those days. It's just one of those days. I know that for sure.
All right, I'm going to let you sign out.
How does
wait
this
a minute.
sound?
No, I got you. You're fine. You're fine. Now you're fine.
All right, well, doing better. It was a simple adjustment on my end.
Okay, very good. Very good.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm hoping everyone's awake. Watching
we are.
Everyone's awake after that for sure. They're like, what?
I've had so many people resonating with your appearances on our show.
Oh, really?
I have one particular viewer who keeps he says, you got to have this man on more often. He knows what he's talking about. Vote for him. I said, well, we are. We're bringing him on. We want to we need good people like yourself, James. We really do. Honest to God.
I really appreciate that because, I'm just following the lead of Christ right now. Because that's what it is. God is in control of my life, has been since I can remember. But now I think the message is being heard. And I want to just take a moment for those. We lost 3 soldiers.
Yes.
And I want to name them in honor of them and their families. Sergeant William Jerome Rivers. Specialist Kennedy Lennon Sanders, Specialist Brianna Alexandria Moffett. You'll never be forgotten. And thank you for your service. And thank the family members. Our prayers are with you. So, Christ is in control now. We are a Christ-led nation. Hopefully we'll bring that back as our founding fathers meant it to be. So, I'm here, open to having a good dialogue with you and the audience.
Well, that's awesome. Let's address a number of different issues here, and you're a continuing guest, so if we don't get to everything today, that's fine. But right now, the border crisis we've got in Texas, we've got truckers heading down to the border. We got the Biden administration making all kinds of threats. We have internal fighting within the Republican Party because Trump had said he didn't want to support this new possible legislation which would attach money for Ukraine to money given to secure the border. Trump saying, of course, well, wait a minute, we don't need any further legislation. Biden or any president has the authority right now to shut down the border. You don't need another law to do it. You want to just take this and run with it and tell us what you think is going on here?
Well, I've been on the border for the last 3 months, watching, surveilling, and also reporting on the border crisis. I haven't been in Texas as of yet. However, here in California, I've been watching and monitoring, working with our brothers and sisters at the border. A lot of it, as you can imagine, has been funded by a lot of nefarious NGOs. And I actually interviewed an NGO about a month back, and let me tell you, it's suspicion written all over it. And as I've been tracking and monitoring, and I'll be actually having conversations with our neighbors to the south here in the next couple of weeks to get their read on it, find out what is going on in Mexico itself. So generally, I see it like most, citizens of the United Nations is seeing it. This has been propagated by the Biden administration, and it's been promoted primarily to bring over those unsuspecting people seeking asylum. But if you get $2,200, a free Obama phone, free meals,
Yeah.
How could you resist this? And that's in essence what's being sold to those that are migrating this way. And yes, they are illegal. They are illegal. There's no way to reframe it. What they're doing in the process in which using and repurposing my brothers and sisters on the border is a crime. Article 4, Section 4. They violated that. Texas has every right to defend their borders because Biden has usurped and is doing something completely against the Constitution. So I'm standing firmly when I served in the United States Coast Guard protecting our borders. I know what is happening. I'm watching it closely. I'm looking at the human carnage. I'm looking at the drug trafficking. I'm looking at the child sex trafficking that's right in front of us. How can you ignore it? So I'm glad that Ted Cruz came out just was it yesterday, speaking about the package they're putting together regarding contingent upon providing additional funding for the border. But this is a shell game. Let's be honest. What they're doing is they're packaging this bill so they can divert more funding directly into Zelensky's hands. And I blew up on Zelensky because I know where the money's going. I've been tracking the money. And oddly, I presented some whistleblowers that worked under Zelensky to a few congressmen to have them speak openly and get the word out. Really what's happening is this biggest grift of the taxpayers in modern day, if not the history of the United States.
It's absolutely incredible, and the problem is that no one in the Biden administration is. We've got now our articles of impeachment have been introduced against Alejandro Mayorkas. I don't know if that's going to go anywhere. I mean, but this is something needs to be done, and of course you're running for Congress from California, right? Are you? Is it Congress or Senate?
U.S. Senate.
U.S. Senate against Adam Schiff, correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, and Shifty Schiff. So, so I can say that maybe you won't be. I don't trust this guy as far as I can throw him. But the idea here is that you got a porous border too. I mean, it's not just Texas. So this, and as I say to other people who are running for office, whether it's Congress, Senate, or whatever, we need to support people like yourself, James, because even if you're not running for office from our state, you're serving the entire United States of America. So people in Michigan, in Texas, in Minnesota, in South Carolina, in Florida, who want to contribute to your campaign can do so knowing that not only are you going to honorably represent the people of the state of California, you're going to be representing all of America in taking back the country from those on the far left who are attempting to destroy it. And you are a God-fearing Christian who wants to bring us back to the moral principles on which this country was founded.
That's correct. Absolutely correct. And I can't think of a better person that served the country. I'm a veteran, obviously. I'm still serving in the Coast Guard Auxiliary as a commander. So I'm seeing this play out real life. But, without having, and I think good veterans that serve the country are great candidates, but more importantly, once they're in office, and some of them actually turn a little bit left, which is a very concerning issue for me. And I won't name names, and I know they know who they are. I'm going to hold them to account as well. But honestly, our war is at the border. It's not Iran. It's not in Zelensky's war. It's here on our soil. So until people finally realize that is our attention and our effort in more investigations. Obviously, we don't need to do investigations. We're seeing it play out in real life now. In fact, I'm going to be down there this weekend meeting with the caravan.
Yeah, we had a trucker on yesterday.
I'm sorry, I've asked if you could continue to report to me on that.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah, and we had a trucker. His name is Jamie. What was his last name?
Just think of the Matrix, Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Anderson, Jamie Anderson, who's a trucker, and he's heading down there with this caravan. Of course, they're not going to be confrontational. They're not there to start a war. They're there to pray, and they're there to support the people of the state of Texas, and they are there to support the National Guard and those who are defending the borders from Biden's out of control policies. Biden claiming again, I'll shut down the border immediately if this bill hits my desk, as long as it includes pork in it. That's why we need. We'll say we need a line item veto for presidents to be able, instead of these omnibus spending bills, in which you got to tax something along that nobody wants in order to get what you want. And we know that even if that happens, the border will not be shut down. He's going to allow 5,000 people a day to come in here with that anyway, and then put a cap on it. But we don't need 5,000 a day coming in. We've already got, the last couple of months was 302,000 people came in here.
I don't know how they're processing them, quite honestly. I do know there was one little, the little grift that I found out, the one actually was playing on this. We had one, I think, Mexican that went back and forth to collect their $2,200. So he made bank. Can you imagine that? I mean, really, they're playing us like a fiddle. And it's on our tax dollars. So until we get a great handle, and hopefully Donald J. Trump will be our next president, he's going to have support from us here in California. Because, honestly, people are still in the northern part of the state. They're still kind of feeling the lag. They're not looking at the crime increases. They're looking at, hey, where's my tax dollars going? We have the Gen Zers are very concerned about the economy, housing here in the state of California. Until we come to that realization, people, when they're awake like your show, we're pretty good. We'd have it's like pushing a boulder uphill, unfortunately. Right. But until we see catastrophic events, I think we're lined up for that. That people won't change their minds. So hopefully we do have our primary coming up on March 5th. Ballots will be landing in their mailbox next week on February 5th. So I'm on the full court press, racing like a madman to get the messages out there. Hey, there's hope. God is in control now. I'm a soldier. And that's the message hopefully will resonate with everyone, because we do, California, even though you think is extremely liberal, a good 80% are God-loving, regardless of faith.
It's just that little tiny southern part of California, the Los Angeles, San Francisco, that part. But my understanding is a good portion of the state of California and people are leaving because they can't stand it anymore. California is a beautiful state, and yet under the leadership that you guys have had under people like Gavin Newsom and some of his predecessors, and I would even say even with Arnold Schwarzenegger that he was a rhino, but the politics have destroyed beautiful cities like San Francisco, which I've been there. I loved it. It's a cesspool now. It's crap on the streets, literally, and tent cities and everything else. Something needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're doing it. We're not waiting to get in office. So I'm already in Sacramento speaking on behalf of parents and the children that are being misgendered and mutilated. So it's about action now. It's not about the promises that people make and yet keep. So I think people need to be proven by their fruits of labor. And that's what I've been really focused in, understanding what the issues are, not only the border, but each zip code, if I can get there, which is physically impossible for me. But I am spending a lot of time on the road, meeting with people, finding out their big key issues. And they differ by culture, by gender, by demographic in general. So, it's about as being active as I can be and engaged as I can be. I believe that that's what I'll be bringing to Californians. People, you have a welcome ear. and we're going to work on these solutions together. It's not, we work in vacuums. No. What's happening here, we've seen it. You nailed it. We got Pelosi. We have Kamala Harris. We got Newsom, which I honestly thought he was going to be running for president, but it looks like Michelle Obama might be taking the place.
That's what, yes. And
Right.
well, and we have another guest who comes on the program from time to time. He was on yesterday, Brooks Agnew. And that was his original assessment that Gavin Newsom was going to be throwing his head into the ring. And at first, there were indications that might happen because you had this weird gubernatorial debate between Newsom and Ron DeSantis supporter, which made absolutely no sense to me. I think he was testing the waters, thinking that he might be running against a DeSantis. DeSantis, of course, as we know, dropped out and rightly so, and endorsed Trump. Not that DeSantis couldn't ever be president, but it certainly was too soon, not his time. So now it looks like it's not going to be Newsom. I said all along, I think that the Obama administration we're having a third term of that right now. Biden is Obama's puppet. And what's going to happen is they're going to find some excuse to make Joe resign, maybe give him some sort of a sweetheart deal, no prosecution for him, whatever. You can pardon his son on the way out for all they care. Get him out. Put Michelle Obama in there. But Brooks Agnew, when I brought that up to him, the first time he dismissed it because he said it was going to be Newsom. The second time he dismissed it because he thinks that what's going to happen is Nikki Haley, who picked up more support from Democrats in the New Hampshire primary than Republicans. He thinks that Haley might switch parties and run against Trump as a Democrat or an independent or something to take votes away from Trump. I still think you're right. I think it's going to be Michelle Obama. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, that's what I've been hearing and reading and honestly, I think, she does. Hollywood loves her, let's be honest. California, it's really sad to see that most of the state is being kind of managed by Hollywood progressives. I say that with caution because they basically hijacked the leftist, extremist, socialist, communist, having hijacked the term progressive. So I don't want to offend the progressives out there because I believe in technology innovation to enhance quality of life and prolong life. But, they basically took over Hollywood. Look at Whoopi Goldberg. Oh my gosh. I can't think.
I would rather not.
Do I have to look at Whoopi Goldberg?
I would rather not.
I know, it's kind of shocking, to be honest. But that's what we're dealing with in California. But, and everyone says, and I've ran a few elections already and gained more traction as I go. They say that Los Angeles determines the outcome of the elections, and it does, because we have over roughly 4 million or 7 million, I can't recall, voters in the county of Los Angeles. So a lot of my time is being focused on an LA market, primarily because those are the voters that have been deceived over the last election cycles. But I can tell you, we're making some great ground. Latino voters represent about 34% of the constituents. Majority of them live in that part of the county. So the game plan is this: God is always in control. 2, we'll follow his lead. The messaging is going out and honestly, when people feel the pain like we have in California, and you mentioned it dead on, many people are leaving this great state, and it's beautiful. If you've never been here, come visit. Not San Francisco, Orange County, San Diego, really beautiful parts of the world.
I lived there. I lived in Orange County. I lived in San Diego, and I fled the state in 2016. I now call it CIA-ifornia.
Wow. And it's sad because there's so many. I think we lost almost 375,000 citizens in the last couple of years now. That's a massive exodus. So
it is a massive exodus, and the reason why is because of the liberal policies.
Mm-hmm. And that's all controlled by the Unique Party in Sacramento, and some of those that voted in as Republicans that go along to get along.
I had told you I also lived in Mission Viejo. I lived all over California. I also gigged all across the state. So it is a beautiful state, but it is being just taken over by these policies that is, in my estimation, for a conservative, not conservative friendly. And it is a military, San Diego is a military town. Not was, it is. It was a strategic position for the United States. That's where you have your BUDS training and you have the Marines training in Camp Pendleton. Coronado, very, very significant. I will say it still is a military town, not was.
Mhm. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. From Camp Pendleton down into San Diego proper, we still have quite a large influence and footprint in California, but many of them cannot vote in California elections, unfortunately. They're from all over the nation.
Right.
And so the good thing is, being a veteran, I can speak not only their language, but I already know their issues. The woke military, the Pentagon that's gone corrupt, the complicity there in D.C. So I have a fairly good grasp on all the issues. And by the way, it's all about engagement at this point. People feel it, they just don't know how to frame it. And I just kind of walk them down and open the door and say, listen, we're all feeling the same pain. I'm not any different from you. I have the same issues. You know, the price increases, the rent, all that stuff that you deal with on a day in, day out basis, living paycheck to paycheck, living on your credit card. You cannot sustain this. You know, with the biggest things in the debate, which I didn't qualify for, oddly, against Adam Schiff, because they played with the numbers a little bit.
Oh,
But
man.
they brought up the housing crisis. Yes, we have a housing crisis, and that's all based on the economics here in California. And it doesn't have to be that way. You know, really, a lot of the laws in the overregulations that's been embedded that it created this level of economy that's just complete diametrically opposed to those that are just trying to survive. It's insane what they're doing. So there's many of, and let me tell you, this is the good news. Many of the conservatives, America First, are running for state and local elections. So there's great things afoot. We're hoping, and we have the mechanisms in place to get out to vote, in play, that this March 5th primary, we're going to see some big changes. Now, I'm not going to say a red tidal wave or red wave or even a red whipple. I will say this, that God is present. He's moving us forward, and we're going to advance in this field to bring back some level of sovereignty, but more importantly, a constitutional republic that we're formed under in God's guidance.
Economic wise, right now, inflation is out of control.
Yeah.
The cost of just about everything is through the roof. You mentioned it earlier. And of course, the cost of living in your state is higher than it is in most of flyover country. But still, what are some of the policies that James Bradley would support to get this economy back on track?
Oh, I would love to. We have to look at our tax codes, and we're going to look at tax holidays for small businesses, new startups. I'm going to be the greatest gift, or we're going to be the greatest gift to small business entrepreneurs. So we're going to empower them not only with the grants and funding needed to get the economy back on track, but you know, I look at this too. If Trump, it's really critical that Trump or Trump-like, and I don't think anyone's like Trump, get in office to get us back in the right footing. Now, the state of California, because I only manage the federal aspect and what I can bring as far as additional funding or laws to reduce the red tape so we can be a more productive state. But it all rests in the hands of Gavin Newsom. So I can do, and I will do, what I can at the federal level to help the agricultural industry, the high-tech industry. I mean, literally, we are the budding. We used to be the 5th largest economy in the world. And look where we are now. People fleeing by busloads. So, wow, we get the illegal immigrants coming over the border.
Right. And they think, as you pointed out, that they're going to get, you know, everything for free. In fact, I think I heard somewhere there's one Democrat, I don't know if he's in the House or Senate, trying to introduce legislation to replace the torch in the Statue of Liberty with an Obama phone, but I don't know.
No, actually, I did hear David, I did hear that they want to tear down the Statue of Liberty.
Well, yeah, I told you that. There was somebody who wants to take it down because they said, how can we give us your poor, you're hungry, but not you. It's give us your poor, you're hungry. You want to come here and contribute something to be part of this country, not to be put on the dole. I mean, that was not the whole idea behind it. But we're almost to the top of the hour, but I want to if people want to help you,
Sure.
Make it over the finish line. When is the primary? How can they contribute?
Yeah, it's March 5th. Donate now. We need this, and you need to be part of this big change. This is a Jesus revolution. I'll call it that because I'm a strong believer. Bradley Senate, BRADLEY, Senate.com. You can be voting for a veteran, tried and true, or my stripes, and I'm jumping in to serve our nation again. So BradleySenate.com. Be part of this. There's hope. We're bringing the right mechanism in place to win this election, despite everything you're hearing in the press. Even the polls are wrong at this point. So be part of this army, God's army, to save our great nation.
Have you talked with Donald Trump at all? Have you had his ear?
I believe I've had his ear through General Flynn back in the day when he supported me, and a few others, but I've never spoke with him directly, no.
If you had to give one piece of advice to Donald Trump, whether not only as a candidate, but let's assume that Trump gets reelected again, and you win your Senate seat, and we toss Shifty Schiff to the curb. What would one piece of advice you could give to Donald Trump? What would it be?
Oh, look at your advisors closely.
Thank you. Don't give us the Reince Priebuses, I call them Rhino Priebus. Don't give us the John McCain's, and yes, he served his country. I'm not taking away anything from his military record, but as a senator, I'm sorry, the guy was just a milquetoast. We need good, solid business people, I believe, within the next Trump administration, to take a look at how to run this country and get it back on track, and not kowtow to the people like the Mitch McConnells and everybody else that's selling our country down the river. Again, BradleySenate.com, BradleySenate.com. Contribute no matter what state you live in, because let me tell you something, folks. He's going to be representing all of us. And if we can get the state of California on track, imagine what he can do to countries that are already conservative but are looking for someone to help steer this ship. BradleySenate.com. Contribute today. We will have you on again before several times before the primary, but we support you 100%, James. And
thank you, sir.
Thank you for your service to this country and the Coast Guard, and thank you for your upcoming service to the country as a senator. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. James Bradley here on the Awake Nation. Again, BradleySenate.com. Please contribute. I think it's very important. All right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, a new guest, but one I think you're really going to enjoy meeting. This woman was accosted. She is now for empowering women with gun rights. We the Female is I believe is her organization, if I'm not misunderstood. Okay, I do have it correct. She's going to be fantastic, and I am certainly looking forward to an interesting conversation with her. So, folks, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Awake Nation. Penny L.A. Shepard and David Zublick with you. Happy to be. And this is Tuesday, January the 30th, 2024. We're going to bring in our next guest in just a moment. Just a reminder, please, if you are interested in getting more mileage out of your gas, go to getmoretank.com today. Getmoretank.com today. This is a fantastic additive which puts additional mileage into every drop of gas you put into your car. You're going to get a discount by putting Awake Nation into the coupon code. GetMoreTank.com. Go there today. All right, let's waste no more time because this is someone that I think is going to be a very, very, very important guest. We welcome Kerry Slone to the Awake Nation. Hi, Kerry. How are you?
Your that is off.
You need to unmute your
I
mic.
hear you.
Sorry about that. I just caught it. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you.
We didn't get an opportunity to talk off air, but I don't know a great deal about your story. I just know a little bit. Can you tell us, were you the victim of domestic abuse?
Yeah, it's been approximately 16-ish years ago, but my abuser beat me up for the last time, and it was pretty bad. I mean, I was sexually assaulted as well. I don't talk a lot about that. That's still too hard to talk about, but I was beat up, and there was one of the most startling things that brought a lot of realizations to me about the broken justice system in that particular case was as I sat with a female prosecutor at my abuser's arraignment. She dropped the DUI charge that was against him because he beat me up and then he took off trying to get, as they often do in their logic, try to get away before the cops got there. And right. So they dropped the DUI charge, and she dropped the felony charge of domestic battery to a misdemeanor. And I was confused by why she was doing that because I told her
charge again. Was that your husband at the time, Kerry?
He was my husband. However, we had just separated and we're going through a divorce, and it was amicable. And at that point we had a little girl together, and he had come to my condo for Thanksgiving dinner. So this actually happened on Thanksgiving.
Okay, let me stop you for just a moment. So, sure. And I know that you don't just help women with firearms; you also help them psychologically, somewhat, to be prepared. Okay, so we also have a trauma triage team in which we discuss issues of trauma. Which, if you were ever interested in helping us out on that, we'd be privileged to have you join that.
I would love to.
We do it every Monday. Every Monday, the final hour of the show, it should be 11 a.m. to noon Eastern. And you're welcome to join any time you want to. We'll extend the invitation. Yes. We'll get in touch with our third co-host and associate producer, Heather Day, runs that. And we can have you as part of that because I think it would benefit so many women, so many people in general, but women especially. So yeah. We don't
just talk about the domestic abuse. We talk about sex trafficking. We talk about solutions. We talk about things within things that you can control, things that you can't control. One of the things that we know of are the corrupt court system. So when you're separating, that actually is the most dangerous time in your relationship. So can you speak to that?
I can, and I can speak with actual data actually to back up what some of that looks like. And quick side note on that, I wanted to address the fact that you have a mental health space that is more on the center to conservative leaning side, which allows for options and alternatives that don't automatically go to a red flag law that could potentially disarm a domestic violence victim. And so why that matters moving forward with a little bit of this conversation is this broken justice system which only gets worse. I mean, this was 15 years ago when the cops told me to hide. 16 years ago when they told me to hide when my abuser was let out of jail after the female prosecutor dropped his charges from a felony to a misdemeanor so that he could get a diversion agreement. And of course he stalked me, as they often do. So, but even the law enforcement officers, you know, I was standing in front of them with, I had fractured teeth. When I say literally black and blue from head to toe, I had fingerprints around my neck where he'd picked me up, he'd thrown me across the room. My teeth were fractured. I hadn't eaten because I couldn't eat for a few days. And they knew at that point that the restraining order was useless. And this was in Washington State. I now live in the, you know, in the South. I live in Georgia. God bless Georgia, and my people down here. But they knew 15 years ago, when it wasn't even as crazy in Washington State as it is now, that to hide. And the reason being, like you said, is there's this false narrative that goes around, particularly from the liberal side of the argument for domestic violence, that a woman is or an abuse victim is 5 times more likely to die if there is a gun in the home. Well, there's 2 fallacies with that. First and foremost, they don't tell you that it's by firearm, because when those situations are heated like that, it's usually, for lack of a better term, the crime of passion, and it's usually with their fists or a blunt force object. However, a woman is actually more likely to die by a firearm because she's being stalked by her abuser once she's out of that situation. Now, here's the interesting thing about this, that these people that want to take your guns love to leave out of the conversation. The very same study that the people that support gun control use to talk about domestic violence victims with the 5 times more likely to die is, a lot of people attribute it to Johns Hopkins. It actually came from a study much older than that. It's almost 30-year-old study. But the very next paragraph in that study, and I'm happy to send it to you if y'all would like for your notes, says that a woman, an abuse victim, is more likely to survive if she has left her abuser and owns a firearm. But conveniently, the Jerry Nadlers of the world, because he's big on that one, by the way, like why we let that man talk about women's rights, any of them really, but especially him talk about women's rights is beyond me. But it blows my mind that, you know, they conveniently, well, it doesn't blow my mind at this point. I've been doing this long enough that I get it now, but that they conveniently leave that piece of the information out. So my organization is a nonprofit organization. I got involved 6 years ago when Washington State passed a law. It was 1639. If you keep up with gun rights policy or gun law policy at all, that made national news. It was a huge deal because at the time it was considered one of the most restrictive gun safety laws that existed. And there was a lot of pieces in it. But the one piece that a lot of people didn't know about, because they intentionally left it out, is when you sign a 4473, that's the form that, you know, a lot of gun grabbers think doesn't exist, the federal background check, form. It is an automatic waiver of your medical record in Washington State, and they can deny you the purchase of a gun based on what they see in your medical record. When I spoke out about that, saying, well, for those of you that just voted for this, you just put me in a position that I may not be able to buy the most effective self-defense tool available to me to protect myself and my daughter from my abuser. And of course, they were all shocked and mortified. And we read the bill, but you didn't, because it was the only thing in the bill that was written in clear, plain English. As for those of you that read policy, I know you understand that they intentionally make it all convoluted, and because they don't want you to read it, because they don't want you to know all the stuff they're sneaking into it. So that's what I went viral speaking about that as a domestic violence victim. I'm very vehemently against red flag laws, because all of those red flag laws can be used against abusers. And now we have, and I actually got published in the Wall Street Journal talking about this big Rahimi case, and I'm sure that y'all had covered that. That's the domestic violence abuser and criminal who, let's be honest, is the worst example of anybody we would want representing gun owners at the Supreme Court. And that was by design, interestingly enough. We can talk about that at some point if you ever want to do that. His case was intentionally thrown up to the Supreme Court to put them on the spot. But we actually have data and research showing now that domestic violence restraining orders do not reduce the numbers of women that are killed with or without a gun. There's nothing about a restraining order that's going to keep a woman or a domestic violence victim from being killed. Now, we all knew that, obviously, but now we actually have the data that reinforces that. And that was put out by Crime Prevention Research Center. So when it comes down to it, and if we want to really look at it, at the core of it, is the two biggest pawns for gun control are domestic violence victims and children. And they would rather see, in respect to domestic violence victims, they would rather see these women, me, right? I'm one of those statistics. They would rather see women like me become a pawn and a martyr, more importantly, for their agenda, rather than help women like me learn their power, find their voices, and learn how to defend themselves. Because let's be honest, when one of the things that we are blessed to have in our Constitution is our inalienable right of self-defense guaranteed to us under the Second Amendment. And that is, I believe, the one thing that has kept our government at bay this long. And I would think that empirical evidence probably would reinforce that as of lately. But so the goal of my organization isn't just to teach women how to use a firearm. Our goal is to arm the women with education, confidence, and self-defense. It's a holistic approach. And it's first and foremost the core being education, because if she has the education, then she's got the confidence. If she has the confidence, then she can effectively learn how to defend herself with or without a firearm. And so that is the core of where we are. One of the bigger pictures of this isn't just helping these women understand how to defend themselves physically, but it's also to teach them the importance of defending their right to defend themselves and helping them become active in the fight to protect the Second Amendment, and not from a shall not be infringed tyrannical government space. You know, we all know that that's there, but to help them understand how these gun control laws actually affect their lives personally. And I have found that is a very effective way to flip gun control supporters once if they're willing to sit down and objectively listen, they tend to flip on some of their perceptions of gun control.
Do you remember Teresa Saldana at all? Okay, it's an older case. I'm 65, so but my husband was he had his MA in psychology. He was a counselor. He ran his parents' MFCC practice. They were pretty evil. And Teresa Saldana was an actress, an American actress, and let me read you a little bit about it. And an activist and a writer. She was known as for her role in Rachel Scully, I believe she died recently, the wife of Police Commissioner Tony Scully in the 1990s television series The Commish, for which she received a Golden Globe nomination for Best Performance by an actress in a supporting role in 1994. Her major roles can include Nenora LaMotta, the wife of Joe Pesci's character in the 1980 film Raging Bull. Okay, so she was also known for raising public awareness of the crime of stalking after surviving a knife attack by an obsessed fan at her home in 1982. She started Victims for Victims. My husband's parents, I believe, were her counselors as well, because they were MFCC's, marriage family crisis counselors. And she was stabbed outside of her house. She was stalked by this individual. She was stalked by Arthur Richard Jackson, a 46-year-old drifter from Aberdeen, Scotland. He became obsessed with her after seeing her in the 1980 films Defiance and Raging Bull. He hired a private investigator who obtained the unlisted phone number of Saldana's mother. Jackson then called Saldana's mother and posed as Martin Scorsese's assistant, saying he needed her residential address in order to contact her for replacing an actress in a film role in Europe. He approached her in front of her West Hollywood residence in broad daylight, March 15, 1982, and attacked her with a 5.5-inch hunting knife, puncturing a lung. His attack was so fierce that the blade bent. And although there were many nearby onlookers, including children, the attack was interrupted only when a delivery man, his name was Jeff Fenn, intervened. After hearing her cries, he rushed from the second floor of an apartment building and incapacitated Jackson. Following the assault, Saldana was hospitalized with 10 stab wounds and underwent a 4-month-long hospital stay at the Motion Picture Hospital. I've researched all of this as well. She relived the incident in the television film Victims for Victims, the Teresa Saldana story, and again in an episode of Hunter. So she had said that she was standing outside of her apartment. People saw her, heard the attack, and no one came to her rescue. Now, this is
and
not
this was in the 90s. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, this was in the 90s. Imagine how much worse it is now. Now we have a whole culture of people that don't want to get involved for many reasons. One,
actually in the 80s.
or in the 80s, excuse me. Yeah, in the 80s. So and now it's even worse because now you have people that want to film things because they want to be famous on the internet. This world star mentality. We have people that don't want to get involved because they're afraid of getting sued. And more importantly, of all of those, not that those aren't disturbing enough, but now we have a society that's afraid to intervene because they're afraid they're going to be charged. Like the case of the veteran in New York on the subway that intervened, to when a man was becoming belligerent and was going after a woman, and he neutralized him and ended up he died in it wasn't obviously malicious. The veteran didn't murder him. We know the case that we're talking about. So now a lot of people are too terrified to intervene, especially in cities that ironically need good Samaritans to intervene the most because of the ridiculous laws. I'm looking at you, West Coast, the entire West Coast, and New York, and and a lot of New England.
The other issue I wanted to bring up, Kerry, is that I was married. My second marriage was to a retired police officer who also domestically abused me. He also psychologically abused me, but he was afraid to actually beat me, although he did break my ribs when I was trying to leave, because of the fact that if he was accused of domestic violence, it would have his guns taken away.
Yeah. I mean, I deal with that one a lot. And of course, working in a more conservative leaning space, that is a very sensitive subject that I have been horribly attacked for. But well over 50% of law enforcement officers have very violent cases or incidences, I should say, against their spouses or significant others. It's disturbingly high.
Yes, one that we reported on, Kerry, he was in Cook's Corner, and this police officer stalked and murdered his wife.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I wish that I could say I was surprised. It hurts me to say that I'm not surprised. We have an instructor that works with us. She was leaving her abuser, was actually taking jujitsu and was learning how to try to defend herself as she got away from him. And get this, there was a law enforcement officer that took jujitsu with her that was there as a predator. He knew that she was not only married and slowly trying to get away, but he literally preyed on her. He was looking for her. And he's the chief of police. That's actually here in Northeast Georgia. And what's even more disturbing about it is not only the fact that these guys, they know how to work the system, right? Like yours, he didn't beat you up because he knew, right? He didn't want to leave evidence. But let's be really honest, Penny, it wouldn't have mattered because they would have covered it up.
Yes.
And I would love to say that has changed, and it's not. I think that there are some
and here's the other question I want to ask you, Kerry. Yeah. Unfortunately, because of this, I was asked to actually go to a shelter, and I refused. I said, nope, I'm out of here on my own power because I don't trust the police. I don't trust the shelters. I don't trust the courts. So where does one, and in a restraining order, it does nothing. It's a piece of paper. It's not a gun.
So the biggest thing is, like you said, the shelters are in the pockets of the politicians, right? They're funded oftentimes through anti-gun organizations, believe it or not, and more importantly, or more concerning is that they want women to relish in being victims instead of helping them find their strength and learn how not to be a victim. It blows my mind the level of martyr enabling victim mentality that it's almost a cancer in a lot of domestic violence shelters. There are a few exceptions, but they're very far and few between. So one of the reasons we created our organization is sometimes we have to help abusers or abuse victims understand that their lives are worth defending before we can teach them how to defend it. You can't just put a firearm into the victim's hands. Penny, in your case, you've been a victim, so you understand before they get physical with you, they have mentally broken you down to a point where when all of this is going on, whether you're hit or not, you are convinced that it's not like, well, I deserve to get hit. That's what a lot of people think, that when we say it's our fault, that's not what we mean. It's well, if I had just had dinner ready on time, it wouldn't have escalated. That's the victim. That's the space that they put us in. And I have yet in all of my years, whether in the industry, work in self-defense industry, in running my organization, or prior to that, have ever found a woman, an abuse survivor, because I worked in the beauty industry prior to this. So I was in the industry of women for 30 years. And so obviously they would come out to me when they found out.
Yeah, because
particularly
you're
what
their
happened.
psychiatrist. If you're
For sure, which is actually been a benefit to this. You know, without a formal
Right.
degree, I was in the business of women for
Right.
30 years.
right.
So, but they would tell you, and I mean, I did. I mean, there was still 3 months later when I was being harassed and stalked, I was still saying to myself, had I not called the cops, I wouldn't be going through this. So,
Right.
and this was 3 months later, even though I knew that it wasn't my fault that he hit me, but we're so, they've got you so mentally broken down.
I have
that
another
any
question
victim-
for you.
Huh?
Okay, so as a woman, you're in, let's just say this individual, she's in a fight right now. She calls the police. That time between when the police arrive is the time period in which the victim is most likely to be killed.
It depends on the situation. If it is while she's still in the home, yes. But yes, for the most part, you are correct. It depends on, there's some factors in there. That being said, in the best case scenario, the cops will show up to the scene in approximately 5 to 7 minutes. That's best case scenario. Now, a lot of people think that means, okay, it's over. No. That's when they show up. They could spend another 10 minutes outside trying to figure out what they do. There was a case, I believe it was 2005, could have been 2007. I'd have to look up the exact date, but you can look it up yourselves. It was Castle Rock versus Gonzalez, and it was Castle Rock, Colorado. And that was one of the cases heard in front of the Supreme Court. It was a domestic violence case that did two things. First and foremost, that case is what, there's 4 cases, but this is one of them, that set the precedence for law enforcement not having an obligation to protect you, that their obligation is only to enforce the law. But the other thing that it did that a lot of people don't talk about is this is one of the cases that set the standard for why 2 law enforcement officers always respond to a domestic call together and they never go in the house together because it puts them at risk. So ladies, if you're out there, you're in an abusive situation, understand, even if you call the cops, first and foremost, their obligation is to protect their own hides. They really don't care about protecting you as much as they do about protecting themselves. And so they will have to come in, separate the 2, and then each will listen to the stories, right, of the 2 involved. And depending on the state, some states, Washington State was one of them, one of the individuals had to go to jail. Now, obviously, because my face was all broken up and bloody, he's the one that went to jail, and he took off. So that kind of helped, as weird as that sounds. But so that was one of the cases that set this precedence. And, you know, there's a lot of cases that came up, and a lot of people only know about these Supreme Court rulings because of the Parkland case. And when the family sued, you know, Parkland over what's his name? Well, Scott Peterson, which, by the way, was weird. If you live in California, you remember the Lacey Peterson case? I thought that was weird that the dude had the same name.
Actually,
but
the Innocence Project is trying to get Scott Peterson off.
I'm sorry?
The Innocence Project, Barry Scheck's organization, is trying to get Scott Peterson off, saying there's new information that he didn't do it.
Oh, whatever. He totally did it.
Now, Kerry,
I know that. I'm just saying.
we're gonna be bringing you back a bunch of times, and I am going to invite you for the trauma triage team because I think you're just a fount of information. Now, let's switch from the domestic violence, okay, to home invasion.
Let's talk about that, because that goes into addressing one of my favorite topics to counterpoint, which is the magazine standard capacity magazine limits for firearms. You know, where and I think I believe, Penny, you're in California. David, I'm not sure. Are you in California?
No, I'm not in California anymore. I am now in the great state of Texas. I fled California in 2016.
Y'all need to watch your face down there.
Partner was.
I teach a lot in Texas, and I'm hoping that what's going on right now helps wake up a lot of people, particularly about a lot of things going on, because that state is a little bit closer to flipping than a lot of people think. And so I'm hoping that outside the cities that they wake up and start fighting back, because once they do, it's all over for for Houston and all of these big cities, right? As soon as the West Texas, which is where my family's from, by the way, I'm half Texan on my mom's side. So as soon as the outskirts wake up, then the game on. And I think what's happening right now is probably going to be the impetus for that. But that is a huge concern. The average FBI statistics show, I've not looked at them currently. Actually, they're not out for 23 yet because it takes a while for them to come out. But the average home invasion is three people, or 3 perpetrators. So, you know,
right, but it's going to be increasing, Kerry, but particularly about what we just discussed. We're discussing the invasion of our borders.
Yes,
which we are invaded. Okay,
yeah.
We now have Hamas, CCP, you know, people from Nigeria who are trained murderers.
Yeah.
Infiltrating our country. We have you know, governors that are saying, hey, invite an immigrant to live in your home. Okay, no problem. And then they're going to take over my ID, they're going to kill me, and they're going to live in my house. So this thing about home invasion, you know, David's in Michigan, and they had talked
Lord help you up there.
Right, they had talked about the invasion in Michigan. Can you speak to that, David?
Actually, well, yes, but before I should say, one thing that it's still protected here in Michigan is in fact, they've even strengthened the Second Amendment rights for concealed carry and open carry. So it's not as bad. We were liberal in many respects, but even the Detroit, and I do live in the Metro Detroit area. Even the police chief there and in many of the suburban cities say, we cannot protect you well enough. Get a gun, have it, use it, learn how to use it. So we're not terrifically bad, and I have a gun, so I mean I you know, in this house. But
that's a rookie number, sir. We need to up that number.
And especially women need to be armed. I'm 100% in support of what you're saying. But yeah, there have been a lot of cases of home invasions recently from migrants here in some of the more wealthier suburbs outside of Metro Detroit, like Birmingham and West Bloomfield. These are areas with upscale homes, people in the you know, $500,000 to $1 million a year salaries, and that sort of thing. And people are breaking into their homes and you know, looting and everything else, and in some cases assaulting the people who are living there.
So first and foremost, I would like to, and I say this with all due respect to you, sir, but one of the biggest problems that I am seeing is from a conservative, centrist to conservative side, is that we have adopted the language of the people that are endorsing this, and they're not migrants; they're illegal aliens, and we need to continue to.
Yeah, well, that's what I meant. We call them.
Yeah, I know you did, but that's one of those kind of like gun violence. There's no such thing as gun violence, but they have brainwashed us into subtly using their words, and that starts to normalize and create a sensitivity, whether we realize it or not. And they're illegal aliens. Now, my husband worked in counterterrorism for 24 years, and here's an uncomfortable truth a lot of people don't want to know. A lot of those terror cells have been here far longer.
Yes.
Far longer than we ever really want to know.
Infiltrating the United States and meeting with the already established terror cells.
Exactly. And so that is something, look, I'm a prepper too. Like, people used to tease me about it till 2020, and they all needed yeast for their bread. And I'm like, So when we hear, like, really, who's laughing now? You can suck it.
David is too. David has a whole survival. Do you want to speak on that, David? The survival?
Are you prepper?
Well, I am, and we also have a company that we deal with called Patriots Supply. That's a sponsor of this program.
Your company?
No, I don't own it.
Okay.
But I use them, and they are a sponsor of the program. They sell everything that you could possibly need, including storable food and water filtration systems and all kinds of things. And yeah, we absolutely believe people need to be prepared now more than ever, is because I think a civil war, on top of everything else we're dealing with here,
we're in a civil war. We've been in a civil war. The battlefield's just been digital, and it hasn't moved to the physical yet. And I believe that we've been in that civil war for many longer than Biden has been in, honestly. But we moved from Washington State. I closed my day spa. I still own commercial real estate up there. I still teach firearms up there twice a year. I go on a road trip and live in my van down by the river, for those of you that are old enough to know the reference, but the Saturday Night Live reference. But we moved down here to Georgia and bought 30 acres to homestead. So, and our first and primary focus for growing foods is all long-time shelf sustainable food. So I grow a lot of beans and legumes and wheat and things. But I also became a clinical herbalist, so that I can grow so I can grow my own medicine and do what real
Well,
dirt
we
medicine
definitely
is.
need to have you as a regular on the show. You can be on trauma triage. You can contribute to. I mean, really, would you be
You're
amenable
fabulous.
to being a regular guest on
I
this?
would love to. I
All right,
would
good.
love to, because that's,
Yeah.
I mean, helping keep women safe, right? And I take a lot of heat in the gun industry, because I call the gun industry out on a lot of their, well, I almost said a word I probably shouldn't say on here, but let's just say that it, the French call it merde show.
By the way, we call it shit. You can say
Okay,
it.
yeah. So the industry can kind of be a shit show. And that was Penny. I wanted to get to talk to you. I was at what's called SHOT Show, which is it's our industry only event, and it's huge. There was hundreds of thousands of people, and you're literally going for 16 hours a day. So I unfortunately didn't get a chance to talk to her last week, because that's where I was.
Yeah, and I'm working, 15 to 18-hour days. So
yeah, so it just was one of those things where I would have loved to have chatted with you. I just didn't get a chance to connect. But the industry, there's a huge disconnect in the gun industry where they think, yeah, 50% of women are of the new gun purchases are women buying guns. That's cool, right? I love that. But 50% of those women, even after they've taken a class, over 50%, an informal poll, I have to say, it was not a formal poll, that was done by me and several of my friends that are instructors. We showed that 80% of women still aren't carrying a firearm every day after they take a firearm class. That's a huge problem. And what that says to me, as coming from somebody that's written education programs, we were an apprenticeship. We were one of the first apprenticeship salons for nail technicians and skincare estheticians in Washington State. And so I understand education and I understand marketing and all these types of things. So, but what that's saying to me is that, cool, the gun industry thinks that they have a victory for women because they're buying guns, but that gun is useless if they're not carrying it on them every single day. So there's still a lack of education. See, I'm on a rant now with this. So there's still a lack of education and confidence happening. And that's where my organization comes in. Is our goal is to fill the gap between the average woman in America and what is considered fundamentals. And a lot of that lies in the psychology and the confidence building, especially for abuse survivors. So that being said, one of the things that cracks me up about the more conservative leaning side, and I say that because there are some people that are a little bit more centrist, and if you had talked to me 10 years ago, you'd have thought I was liberal leaning, and it's not that necessarily I have changed, it's that they keep moving the crazy goalposts to the other side. But I've always been and am passionate about stay off my lawn and leave me alone. Right? Like, I will leave you alone, live your life. I don't care if you're trans. What I care about is you coming after my kids. And,
Right.
This is the one
Same
thing
here.
what's sad is I know a lot of trans people that actually feel that way. Like Gays Against Groomers, they've just gotten,
yes, I love them.
it's awful. That's a wonderful organization. I know a lot of trans people that are actually very conservative that are afraid of coming out because of the attacks they take even on, on the conservative side. But anyway.
Yes, I don't believe that this movement has helped any trans person at all. I think it's actually there to take them down.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what's really sad is those people don't see that they've become political pawns as well, right? Yeah. To continue fracture. But for those people, and I know that y'all have seen this, I have a very, very good friend and mentor that's up in the, he lives in Michigan and he's got property up in the UP, a very big prepper. You might know him, actually. I'll mention his name off air because he's a law enforcement, he was many years ago, but he teaches law enforcement and stuff all over the country. But one of our big things that we talk about is prepping. And a lot of people think that having guns and ammo is all about being prepared, when it's about this much of it.
No. Yeah, there is so much more.
Look, if you don't know what kind of leaves to pull off of a tree to fix an infection, you're screwed. And then you become a supply drop for me. So I don't need to be the best. I don't need to be the best shot on the range. I need to know which mushrooms to eat when you eat the wrong ones. That's the bigger thing. And so everything that we do, whether it's firearms training, and I do some herbal medicine training, and part of my passion for getting into that was that law I had the foundation in skincare because I went to holistic skincare school. But fast forward to this law that put women in a position that they might not be able to get a gun to defend themselves. In Washington State, there's no criteria that says what you can or cannot be denied the purchase of a gun for. So, for a woman who maybe she took Ambien, that is classified, I believe, I know there's several medications that are not used for antidepressant that are clinically an antidepressant. it's because of the denial is arbitrary based on whoever is reading the criteria at the time. A woman may be denied, or a man. I mean, 1 in 3 women will experience domestic violence. 1 in 7 men will experience it. We are the only organization that also helps to actively advocate for male domestic violence victims and hold women accountable for their abusive behavior as well, because it does happen. It does not happen as much, but it does happen. So, and a lot of times theirs is more psychological, which leads to increased suicide. Whole different topic. But these women were scared to go get the mental health care that they needed. I had PTSD on my medical record because I did what I was supposed to do and went to therapy after I was beaten up. And that's what, that's again goes into why I could be denied. So a lot of these women that they're finding out in my classes, they're like, you mean because 15 years ago I took this? I'm like, yeah, because they don't define what they will and won't define or how far back they'll look. So I expanded my education into herbalism to help people find alternative remedies that are as effective. Pain medications tend to be the one that Western medicine kind of.
My husband, Kerry, my husband was an addict. He was retired and he was on morphine. He was on oxy. He still was carrying a gun and going around like a crazy person. And we lived in San Diego. He was a Carlsbad PD, and his dad was deputy sheriff. And he taught at the police academy. He also taught at Pendleton. And on drugs, and driving around with his firearms. And he used to dress as though he was going out to Vietnam. He dressed with the vest. I would buy him clothes because he had a shoulder holster, so he would have to have jackets that were bigger for the shoulder holster. He would strap on a knife under his boot and extra ammo and have extra ammo in the car. I'm like, dude, are you getting into like a firefight today? This is San Diego, not realizing that it is a war zone and every day is a war zone. And so when you were saying that women need to be more acclimated to, you can be accosted anywhere, anytime by anyone, and then also be situationally aware.
So that's the core of what we teach, and we call it the ladies, you are too pretty for prison. You do not want to go to prison unless, when it comes down to it, you have to ask yourself, is this situation worth dying or going to jail over? I've had to draw my gun on a crazy homeless guy in Seattle once. And let me tell you, that psychologically affected me, and I didn't have to pull the trigger. He saw it and took off. So now, interestingly enough, it was that cathartic moment for me that helped me realize, like, I knew that I would defend myself, especially my daughter, right? Because that's usually for women in particular, or grandmas. That's what does it for us is, oh, well, we may not do it for ourselves, but, we call them Granny Oakleys in my classes, and I had a 70-something-year-old in my class.
Granny Oakley, I like that.
Isn't that cute? It's not original. Another female fireman.
But I love it.
Well, actually, my best friend Susie, she has her carry license, and she did get in a firefight over her ranch, which she was actually told years before they prophesied that everything would start happening at her gate. And our friend Chet Swift, who was a sniper, a career sniper, was murdered. He was brought there to do security on the ranch by cartel. And I will just say this, I can tell you off air who the individual was, but I believe that the city of Bastrop is working in conjunction with the cartel. And this particular individual, I believe he's actually Mexican mafia. And so they murdered Chet. They tried to kill Susie. She was in the truck with her son, Joel, and Joel had gotten out of the truck and the firefight ensued. She leaned out of the truck, got her gun, leaned out of the truck in between the fire for her son.
Yeah.
And then I'll tell you what the result of that was off air. And it was a travesty of justice.
Oh, I'm sure it was her fault, blah, 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 all of the things. And,
stand your ground in Texas on her land.
Yeah. That's a whole other episode. I don't want to talk about my disdain and lack of trust. I don't know why we have a president. I'm all about states' rights. So I'm a big 10th Amendment. I'm totally team 10th Amendment, anti-federalist. But how much government can we get away with having and still function as a normal society? And at this point, I'm like, balkanization is not out of the realm of something that I explore.
I do want to ask you, Kerry, we've got about 20 more minutes. I do want to ask you, what are your thoughts on Texas right now?
So I was at SHOT Show, and I was kind of disconnected from the news, which was bittersweet because the news can exhaust you, it can depress you, but at the same time, I absolutely think it's ignorant for people to not continue. Like, people say, I don't watch the news, I don't listen to politics. I'm like, well, you better, because it's paying attention to you.
Yes.
So I think it's an incredibly short-sighted. Do I think you need to be immersed in it, which is easy for people like you and I to do because we work in these worlds.
Yes. We report the news on the show every day, and then we have a news hour after that. So I kind of have to pay attention to the news.
Oh, I hope you're able to get outside and like get some fresh air sometimes, because woo, man, because it's easy to get sucked into it all, right? But
Yes.
I personally, I think it's great. Like, I'm all about it. I love the fact that, our state has issued support. I don't know if we've sent people down yet, but I know that
Yes, there's over 26 governors that have agreed with Texas.
Yes.
And I believe over 10 that have actually sent National Guard.
Yeah.
And we had one of the truckers from the truckers convoy on the show yesterday.
Nice.
And, we have a myriad of guests that we ask about this, because the headlines did read Civil War, is Civil War,
Right.
an actual declared civil war happening, because Texas refused what the Supreme Court said. And then Abbott went and cited specific, sections of the Constitution which were not being obeyed, and said that we have the right to defend ourselves and our borders.
So Texas people also, unless you are, my family, they're all from West Texas, Midland, Odessa, football country out there. And they've been out there for generations. And if you don't understand Texas, obviously you live there, so they have their own pledge of allegiance to the Texas flag, because it is written in the Texas Constitution that they can secede at any time. Like, this is not, Texas is not, this is why I worry, and I really want to see. And I think this particular incident is what is helping the people outside the city start to come in, because they will in the entire state. Yes, I realize there's a lot of open land, but those are the people that are really going to be the ones that are stepping up. Because let's be honest, those people, most of the people in the cities, they ain't ready for this. So, but people like I said, I'm in Georgia, and I'm in the country in Georgia. I live out in farmland, like where I live. We've got history going back pre-Revolutionary War where I live. That's how old the area is. I live closer to Savannah. Like, this isn't foreign to us. Like, we're okay with this all getting ready to happen, because we're all prepared for it. So I think it's great. I do think, and I understand that there's legal stuff that Abbott had to go through, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, I've met Abbott's wife. I know a lot of people, big players in the politics game in the Dallas area, which is where a lot of that political money is. And not that it's not in other areas, but it's big in Dallas, if you're familiar. I think that he could have pushed the issue a little bit harder sooner. And I find it awfully bizarre that it is coming now. Oh, conveniently now it's an election year, and now we're seeing more of that hard line, when he could have been pushing for that, in my opinion, that hard line, instead of using taxpayer dollars to bust these people everywhere. Which, don't get me wrong, I thought that was a nice flex. I thought, okay, this is pretty funny, especially in Chicago, where now gang members are going to. You never thought in a million years you would see gang members showing up at city council meetings. And in Chicago, they're showing up. I'm not gonna lie, it's horrible to say this, so please take it for the context. I was like, I'm kind of here for this. And they said that the gang members are like, you don't get these people out of. Obviously, the language was much more colorful, but they're like, you don't get out of here. We gonna handle that shit in the streets ourselves. And I'm like,
you know what?
Well, who would have thought that it took you
Right.
aliens?
And in regards to like obtaining a gun legally, you have illegal guns with gang members, gangbangers, and criminals that will come in and kill you for a slice of pie.
Yeah, and right now, those are the ones that are unifying with the law-abiding gun owners against welcome to 2024. Who would have ever thought that, right? And so I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of that. I know that we will see that. I know for a fact that we will see that more from legal Latin American, Latin immigrants that have come here, Latin American immigrants, because they ain't having it. They're definitely more conservative, and even some. I know a lot of Muslim legal immigrants that have come here, and they're like, "No, we're they were Trump voters, So there's a huge difference in that. Yeah, I mean,
that's on militias, Kerry.
I'm a fan of militias personally. My state has a militia. They have a state-funded militia in addition to our Guard. So I'm a big fan of militias. I'm very good friends with several of the young men back in the, the 2020 and the Virginia, the rally, the 40,000 person rally, and a lot of this, what they referred to at the time, the Boogaloo. I became a stock photo for the Boogaloo. And from Oregon State. So a lot of those young men, a lot of people dismissed those, but the reason you're not hearing a lot about them right now is because they literally have gone off grid, off social media, and they're doing everything that they can to be self-sustaining and training in these things. And I fully support militia. Our government was founded on militia, or our country was founded on militia. Our founding fathers and our founding mothers. I'm big on women's Revolutionary War history. Like, I got my tour of Peacefield for free because I knew more about Abigail Adams than the than the tour guide. I'm passionate about it. So, Thomas Jefferson was very vocal about it. And it's unfortunate that James Madison is not acknowledged for as vocal as he was about the support of militia.
Well, I'm sure if there was a statue of him somewhere around, that it'd be pulled down too.
Oh, don't even get me started on that. That just irritates me. As I'm married to a historian, I'm a, been a life study of, most of my adult life studied Revolutionary War history, Civil War history, but particularly Revolutionary War. And this, circling back to what you're saying about the illegal aliens in the houses, and like, people thought that the Third Amendment would never be violated in this country because it was just insignificant. And I'm like, what's next, right? They're going to force you to put illegal aliens in. What's next? Cops, right? Or the extra service members that are supposed to help keep these people safe. Like, it's a domino effect.
Home open to a soldier, and now it's going to be the cops, going to be Border Patrol.
David, this started happening in 2020, and people didn't miss it when the hotels and stuff, these private hotels in New York were being forced to put, the homeless people into their facilities.
Kick out our veterans. I have to go let my dog in. I'll be right back.
Okay, go ahead.
I made my husband take the dogs outside because I have one in particular. She's very sweet. Yeah. But he's not the brightest bulb in the chandelier. And he likes to bark at everything, every little thing. So I'm like, take the dogs outside.
You were mentioning earlier an interesting thing about women being unable to, for example, obtain a gun. It's harder for, well, not just women, but anyone to obtain a gun now in several liberal states by saying that you have to, they check your medical records. Now, what's interesting is, you pointed out things like, maybe you're on some sort of a medication that can be used for a number of different things, but one of those things is being, treating depression, and therefore that might be a red flag in their view, which would go against your ability to be able to get a license to own a gun. But what about the case of a woman, for example, who has been abused, is not on any medication, but is denied the ability to get a gun because those looking at her medical records say, well, God, she was treated for domestic abuse. That means her mind is all messed up. Right. Therefore, you don't want to put a gun in her. She doesn't have to be on any medication. She's just
and they're doing that also to whistleblowers, Kerry. They're falsely diagnosing whistleblowers, saying that they're crazy, they're schizophrenic, they're bipolar, throwing them in crazy houses, drugging them, and hindering their ability to defend themselves.
Penny, don't be paranoid. The government would never do that.
I know, right?
So well, look at right. I've had the FBI visit my house because I was in DC on the 6th. I didn't even get into the county.
Oh, so you're a target too.
So, well, they've already visited me, The funny part is, and I'll tell you guys about this offline or later, but the Reader's Digest is we were getting ready to sell our house. My husband retired. He was a base XO up in Washington State. You were talking about being a very military heavy area. I've considered writing a book. I can give you the play-by-play about how your states and your cities flip. Like, I've watched it happen. So even in a predominantly, we were in the Kitsap County area, which there's 3 bases there, and another one within, 2 hours. So, well, 2 bases within 2 hours. So I know that playbook. But we had just pulled. We were having the photos done to list the house, and literally an hour before the FBI showed up at my house, we had just pulled the doormat in that says "Come back with a warrant."
Get back out, honey.
Yeah. So we laughed. We had a good time about it. But look, let me be clear about something. I will give you $50 if you ever find me a domestic violence victim that blindly trusts law enforcement in any capacity. We don't, because they've never done anything to help us. So, and of course, we take a lot of heat, particularly in the gun industry, right? Because they tend to worship those people. Oftentimes, at least some of the older generations do, because as a Gen Xer, I'll be 50 this year. I see both sides of this argument and for gun rights and the different perspectives that is had from it. And of course, you know, the old guard still controls that gun rights narrative. That's a whole other conversation too. But it's interesting to see how blindly people will do this when these people, it's kind of like you see the people with the bumper stickers that say, you know, Molon Labe or, you know, come and take it. And then they have the thin blue line sticker. I'm like,
right.
You know who's going to take that from you, right? Like
position.
Yeah, the cognitive dissonance is profound. So to circle that back to the relevant conversation of red flag laws, I have a very, and this is because I pissed off the people in the gun rights world, I don't get a lot of play with this because I don't play by their rules, because I don't care about, you know, we need to all work together. No, we don't. We don't work with abusive men in the industry. We call it out, and they like to hide that kind of stuff. But so I don't care what they think of me, because my sole purpose is to help women, period. And even if that woman is liberal, I've developed a reputation for flipping liberal women on gun,
nice.
AR bans, by the way. But red flag, even a lot of conservative leaning people, they're against red flag laws. But until it comes to, well, if they're really mentally ill, they're suicidal, they should, or a violent criminal, like I'm that controversial. Violent criminals shouldn't have guns back. But aren't you the same people that say that they're going to get that gun regardless? So really the only, you know, if they're a bad guy, they're going to get the gun anyway, right? That's the Rahimi case. That's what we're dealing with. Rahimi was never convicted of domestic violence. He was convicted of possessing firearms while under a domestic violence restraining order for domestic violence. He was never convicted of. So that's not what the Supreme Court case specifically was about, but that's kind of the bigger picture a lot of people don't see. But what people don't understand is every single law that is put in place for gun control, particularly red flag laws, can and will be used against you in some capacity later on. So you can support that law in any way that you want because you think it's justified until somebody decides that you are unfit to own a gun, because they don't write these laws to be specific. They do them to be vague and arbitrary by design, so that later, or my favorite, Dan Crenshaw is guilty of this one with his red flag law support. He said, well, I didn't support red flag laws. I'm like, no, you approved a law that gave a blank checkbook to people that can put the laws in place. Like save your bullshit, Dan. Like I got into it with him over this. I actually have the screenshots of it. It was in DMs on Instagram, actually. I'm like,
Good for you.
Blow it up somebody else's rear, because I see you, bro. and so a lot of people don't get that. So at the end of, I'm a hardline absolutionist when it comes to that, because violent felons, that's a super controversial one in the conservative world. But at the end of the day, if they aren't reformed, they should either stay in jail, or in the case of rapists, abusers, and pedophiles, they should be dead. Like, why are we letting them out of jail to begin with when they should just be taken out back and put in a wood chipper or, you know, whatever, right? So at the end of the day, it is not my responsibility or yours to decide who should get a gun and who shouldn't. It is our responsibility and our inalienable right to be better trained than those that want to do us harm, period. And when I say period, I mean, there is no but after that. That is period. So we have to start changing the culture of victim mentality in the country, and that there's some of that on both sides, unfortunately, because of the generational issues that we're dealing with. You know, there's a lot of younger people in the conservative space that will, you know, they, once you cross them and you call them out on accountability, they will play victim too. So it's not just a liberal thing; it is a generational thing that's deeply concerning. But until we start looking at gun control laws differently, the minute that anybody who's pro 2A says, yeah, but we're dealing with a problem, and that problem will eventually affect them. It's just that they think that because they live in a free state, you know, I live in one now, arguably. I mean, we're very pro-gun. I mean, obviously, our governor was one of the governors that showed up at SHOT Show to bring industry here. He just brought Remington ammo is going to be, they're moving down here. We've got a lot of gun companies down here. But until we say no, hard line, that law in some way, it may not affect you today, but make no mistake about it, these politicians on either side, it's about control. It's not about you and protecting you. And so you've got to hold them all accountable and stop with identity politics, because identity politics are going to be, and will continue to be, the downfall of our country.
Kerry, I want to thank you so very much for coming on the show. You've been tremendously engaging. I know you have a fount, as I said before, of information. I look forward to.
I'm having a great time.
Being on the trauma triage team.
I love it.
And,
yes.
And if people want to undertake training with you, how can they go about doing that?
So I suggest that they go to, you can go to info@wethefemale.net and send us an email and we can see where you are. We do 2 tours a year. They're called the Arm the Women Training Tour. We do take men as well. And I also do private lessons, but I visit different states. I travel from Georgia up to Washington and I'll do stops on the way back through. We've taught in Chicago, Arizona, lots of different states. So if you would like to bring one of our training tours to the area, we are happy to talk to you about what needs to happen from people to bring that in. One of the big important things, if it's okay if I have a minute, that I want to talk about that is important that nobody in the industry really addresses the way we do is we also, if I can't get to where I can train these women for free, so we do charge, but I don't get a paycheck from this. 100% of paying students, their tuition goes into a fund along with any other donations and things that we get. We work 100% donation and driven for the other than students paying, goes into a fund that provides financial aid for women, domestic violence victims, single moms, and elders. Our widows are women that have now become caretakers for their elderly husbands. We provide financial aid for those individuals, for those women that can't afford training, because no one should, but especially women and domestic violence victims, single moms, or elders, should be denied the ability to learn how to responsibly and safely use a firearm, but especially because they can't afford it. Last year, we gave away $6,000 in funds for financial aid, including 24 women that I personally helped certify in Chicago, who, boy, those ladies needed it. So that is one of my passions, is making sure that if we can't train them, we have qualified instructors that we work with that teach from our approach, which is very unique. It's not like any fundamentals that's out there, I guarantee it. And so that's another thing that we do. So if you need financial aid for training, ladies, especially if you're a victim of abuse or single mom, or if you're an elder, or Granny Oakleys, as we call them, please reach out to us and we will not only provide that financial aid to an instructor for you, we will help you find an instructor that isn't just going to teach you how to pull a trigger or, any of those things. We're going to help you find somebody that's going to teach with compassion and empathy and set you up for success to carry that firearm to defend yourself every day.
So they can contact you at www.wethefemale.net. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
All right, we're gonna post a link to that on the description of today's program. Kerry, we look forward to having you as a regular on the show now. Thank you for agreeing to do that and for joining our trauma triage team. It has been just an honor to have you on the show today. You're fantastic.
Well, I have had a blast talking with y'all. Like I said, if this wasn't on there, we'd be sitting having a glass of bourbon and going on for hours.
All right. Well, maybe. Well, I don't drink, but I'll drink a Diet Coke with you while you have your bourbon, and we'll talk about it.
Deal. So y'all have a great day. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, and God
Kerry.
bless you, Kerry, for all you do.
As well.
Kerry Slone here on the Awake Nation,
Wow.
and yes, we'll have her as a regular. She's going to be fantastic. I love her. That was wonderful.
I do too.
What a great hour. God, we have good people. Finally today, before we close out, I some good news, okay? National Guardsmen tasked with protecting the southern U.S. border, well, they received some much-needed reinforcement today as Mike Lindell arrived in Texas to build a MyPillow border wall. Yes, the pillow mogul, left with millions of units in unsold inventory due to being boycotted by mainstream retail outlets, vowed to put his pillows to good use by constructing an impenetrable but luxuriously soft barrier to prevent illegal migrants from entering the country. He said, "The most comfortable border wall you'll ever have, or your money back," as he ordered construction crews to begin assembling a massive column of foam chunk-filled pillows. He said, "The deep state and their corporate allies thought they could put me out of business by refusing to sell my product. Well, the joke's on them. Years of pillow fort development will now result in a wall along the southern border that cannot be breached. It's the Kraken of border barriers. And best of all, the entire border wall is machine washable and made right here in the U.S. Experts believe the latest development could only serve to intensify the already strained standoff between the state of Texas and the federal government. This is a clear escalation of the conflict," said one White House insider. Things were already tense between the administration and Texas, but involving a known threat to democracy like Mike Lindell will only bring us closer to open hostilities. As of the reporting of today's story, sources at the border reported seeing thousands of migrants lying fast asleep up against the Mexico side of the MyPillow border wall, likely getting the best sleep of their lives.
Best night's sleep in the whole wide world. Visit MyPillow.com.
And by the way, that is /Awake Nation. So they are one of our sponsors. So please go to MyPillow.com/Awake Nation. That's going to do it for this edition of the Awake Nation. We do it Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Central and 9 a.m. to noon Eastern at our Rumble channel, the David Zublick channel, and at theawakenation.com. We also invite you to join us later today and every day, Monday through Friday, by 6 p.m. Eastern, as we post a 30-minute newscast on our YouTube channel, The Awake Nation News, and also available at our website, theawakenation.com. Thanks for being with us today. We appreciate it, and we will talk to you again tomorrow. In the meantime, we are out of time, so we're out of here. Zublick out.
Shepard out.
Goodbye for now from the Awake Nation with co-hosts David Zublick, Penny L.A. Shepard, and Heather Day. We invite you to watch us live on Rumble at the David Zublick channel and at theawakenation.com. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. to 12 noon Eastern. Join us for the Awake Nation News, a 30-minute quick shot of truth with a shot of espresso, 8 a.m. to 8:30 Central, 9 a.m. to 9:30 Eastern, followed by 5 sets of 30-minute interviews with influencers who defy the mainstream narrative. The Awake Nation, the truth with a shot of espresso. Please join us on YouTube at The Awake Nation News for an additional 30 minutes of breaking news, posting Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Central and 6 p.m. Eastern. On behalf of The Awake Nation, with co-hosts David Zublick, Penny L.A. Shepard, and Heather Day, we humbly thank our Dark Outpost and Awake Nation family. We thank you for watching The Awake Nation and ask you to join us again each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. to 12 noon Eastern. Ship doo 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 doo, yeah. Ship doo 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 doo. Ship doo 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 doo, yeah.